What's up, everybody? Welcome, welcome. Just let people trickle in for a second. Got a small crowd today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. I'll probably only be going for an hour today because I've got a lot of other work that I need to take care of. But still go for about an hour. And yeah. For anyone new, this is a likeness of Keanu Reeves, still in the works. Definitely not anywhere near done, and it's going to lead up to a whole other part of the piece. Like, this is just one part. I mean, this is like obviously the head and the rest of the body and everything else is going to follow. Replicating an iconic scene from the end of the first Matrix. Just get some tunes in here. All right. Right. There we go. I think last time we were finally moving on to yeah, skin texture. Turn off some of these fun lights and just keep it a bit more plain. Actually, I might turn one of them on just to give some rim light. Had them matched up with the photo before, and now I'm sort of taking some artistic license because it's a different pose, it's a different scene than what this shot is anyway, and I don't know, they just look a little bit better when they're lowered slightly than they were up higher. I don't know, we'll see. Still have to figure out how the hell I'm going to print these and have them work. So I was thinking of extruding the glasses thicker to go like sort of lock into his face, into the eyes, but it just looks wrong. You know, it needs to be this thin, or approximately like this thin. And on a 1/6 scale head, that's going to be pretty tiny. I mean, I think I could print it on the Form 3. Just how delicate and how much, you know, how well it'll stay together. That's the thing, because I've seen the one of the replica of this that was done of him was done by Hot Toys, famous company. Uh, but they had to make the glasses and the rims and everything just thick, like really thick, just to stay together, you know, just not to break apart in someone's hand. And it just looks ridiculous. Like everything else looks great, except for the most part, except for the glasses, and they look like goggles or something completely wrong because they had to make them so thick. So I'm gonna try to defy that and figure out a way. I'll probably have to thicken certain areas here, like the nasal area, just the, I mean the whatever they're called, the points of the glasses that give support on the nose, nasal pads, whatever. So I'll have to obviously connect those and probably thicken that up a bit, mostly because it'll be hidden. Hopefully, you know, it'll be unseen. But it's gonna have to be, I don't know, interesting balance, an interesting dance to get this to print. Look, man, still Keanu. How far am I going with details? Yeah, pores. I mean, like this general kind of pores, you know, like what I'm doing right now. That's about as far as I'm going to take the skin detail, you know. Probably do some touch-ups here and there because some things look a little rough still, like not great yet, you know. I mean, it's getting good. I mean, I'm feeling happy with it overall, but um, definitely going to still push it a little further. But like I said earlier, for those who may not have joined earlier, sooner, I'll probably just go for an hour today because I got a lot of work to do on other projects for clients. So, yeah. Oh, dirt consistent material. No, it wasn't. I was doing both. Never mind. Um, Grands 007. What's up? Am I going to render it with realistic skin with skin shade and realistic lighting? Maybe. I don't know. I keep going back and forth on that because this is really intended just to be 3D printed. Like the hair is not done at all. So it's not really. It's still too tall, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll definitely. I don't know if I'm gonna render it realistically in the end. I'll definitely do a render of it when it's like, you know, closer to complete and just ready to be 3D printed. Um, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm gonna go to the length of like, you know, UV and everything and doing all that since that was never the intention. I mean, I could, I guess, you know, but then all that gets destroyed when you get ready to 3D print it. Um, Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of work for just like a render or two. I mean, yeah, it could look good, I guess. I mean, obviously, I'm putting this much detail into it, but um, meh, we'll see. Someone left a comment on my one post on Instagram. They left the quote from Breakpoint. I am an FBI agent. Johnny Utah. Classic. I just rewatched that like, I don't know, a month or two ago. So good. Can't believe they tried to remake it. Like with a bunch of no names and just why would you remake it? It doesn't matter with the no names or not. Like why would you remake such a classic movie? And not at least, you don't have one of the actors anymore and Patrick Swayze's gone. So like why even if you're not gonna use the same actors, I bet you're like why? It's just like it was such a waste. I don't know. So weird. Just felt like such a generic, like almost like a parody, kind of just so generic, like everybody and just everything. It was like, yeah. But anyway, disappointing. Um, you wish you could do this, but you just suck at organic sculpting. I dream to make vids and animate clips and things. Just can't sculpt organic. Things to save my life. How do you do this? With the computer. Yeah, you can do it, man. You absolutely can. This is I mean, there's got to be inspiration behind what you're doing, of course, but you can't teach someone inspiration. Like you can't teach someone to have passion to care about something. That's like innate. That's like an internal spark of something that touches you or inspires you, and you have an emotional and cerebral response to that. That's different. But when it comes to the technical skills of this, like even drawing, people say I can't draw. I can't draw a stick figure to save my life. That cliche. You can. You can be taught. It's if you don't have like damaged nerve endings and your arms and hands and eyes all work, you can do it. You absolutely can. It's a matter of having the patience and the discipline and the commitment to do it. That's all. It's like a lot of other skills. It's like any other skill, really. Um, Repetition, hard work, patience with yourself, and just following the right steps. Observing life, drawing still life is the beginning of everything. I think it's the foundation of a lot of art. So that means sitting down, pencil and paper, looking at an object, whatever it is, human or otherwise, and then just 10 times more than you're looking at your page, looking back there, basically trying to mental photocopy what you're looking at, and your hand is the medium, right? It's the output. Um, that's really an oversimplification, but it's also basically what it is. And so then that translates into 3D. If you look at something and you can understand its volume, which comes a lot from drawing, I think that really helps a lot. You have to teach yourself, you have to refine your mind to understand how to replicate, perspective and dimension and shapes. So it's like anything, you start with basic shapes. Like, you think of a nose, it's basically a cone inserted into a circle that's inserted into an egg or an ovoid shape, and that's like the volume and basic form of the face, the human face. Then you have all these distinct planes, right? Your zygomatic area, your orbital areas, your forehead, your buccal fat, your cheeks, all those zygomatic landmarks, bone. So it's studying anatomy, it's just getting familiar with the human structure. You know, Granted, I started with a scan for this, which is what we often do in visual effects for movies and everything else. Often you have a scan of the actor now, and that's your starting point. It's, of course, scan data is always very messy. I mean, it's as far as like geometry, the actual when you talk about like the actual edge loops here, like these are all really this is clean geometry, right? This is all like the edge loops going in the right way so that everything can deform if you were to animate the face. All the muscles in the skin would compress in the right way and stretch. But when you get scan data, it's all triangulated, so it's just a cluster of just polygons just filling every little area that they need to in order to hold the shape, times a million or whatever. It's just a lot. So that's not animatable. It's just good for like holding shape, the volume, the structure, and then you have to take a new clean mesh and conform that, shrink wrap it using like Z-wrap or whatever to take the form of the face you're working on. But even then, scan data is imperfect, and so you have to do cleanup, of course. And then after that, you have to have things ready for blend shapes, perhaps get expressions right. Yeah, so there's a lot of other things to learn. It's like math, right? You can't do quadratic equations if you don't know how to add and subtract. You know what I mean? Like there's a foundation of things you have to build on. So it's the same thing here. Starting with basics, man. Starting with basic shapes, being able to render them, like understand them, cerebrally, and then be able to execute them physically. That's where you start. You start with that, and it's just snowballs over time. It's like the whole cliche of 10,000 hours, whatever. It doesn't have to be exactly that. Some people catch on quicker, some people take longer. irrelevant of that time. It's simply just effort and repetition and focus. And that's all easier when you love something, when you're in love with what you're doing, or you're attracted to the subject matter. You know, whether you love animals or you love hard surface material, you know, like mechs or robots or whatever. If you're, you know, excited about what you're working on, it just makes the practice and the repetition and the hard work so much easier. It's still work, but you're at least enjoying the process. Hopefully, you're enjoying the journey. Um, yeah, and that's where it all starts. You know, that's how you really get started with anything like this. It's letting your love for something take over in a sense, and letting that kind of guide your pursuit of what you're working on. And it's like anything else, man. I think not enough people who've succeeded in their career, especially artistically or creatively, not enough of them tell everyone else the reality, which is that they were often in the same place you feel like you are, or you are currently. You know, we all started from something that was nothing like what we are today. And it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of commitment. Again, it's the same thing: repetition, passion, pushing through the hard times, being broke at times, you know, like just working some job you dislike or even hate maybe at times to make ends meet to get to do what you love after work, right? Hopefully not working a job you hate, but having a job, period. It's just earning a living. It's important. Good work ethic is very important because that translates into this too. It's like this needs a good work ethic. You need to have fortitude and commitment and discipline, self-discipline, and to be that right on that right knife edge of self-critical, but not negative, right? Not hurting yourself emotionally or going down on, getting down on yourself. Like that's not what you want. You just want to be able to be critical of what you're doing in a you know, critical thinking. You need to be able to critique what you're doing constructively and have people around you as well who can do the same thing. That they can not put you down, but see the flaws and then, you know, just be kind and creative, kind and constructively creative in how they critique your work. Yeah, I mean that's where it's like it's good to take some classes for sure, whether it's online. In person is always better, I think. And not necessarily in ZBrush. I just mean art, like drawing. Just life drawing is great. Take a formal life drawing class, you know, to have a nude model or still life in front of you, and you just have to work that, right? You just have to replicate that on a piece of paper. You know, you sit on your drawing horse, bring a giant piece of, you know, your tablet, drawing tablet, and just I mean, drawing pad, I guess you should say, paper and pencil, and just break out your number two or whatever and just get to work, you know. Just do quick iterations, gestural, and then move into refining and refining until you're sitting there for an hour or two and just trying to create a really beautiful piece of someone sitting there or standing there or whatever. That's where, you know, that's where I got my start, and that's where a lot of other artists, most artists, you know, generally start, is the classic human form and classic basic education of art, which is, you know, goes way back to Da Vinci and Michelangelo and all that. It's just studying the human form, studying still life, replicating that, rinse and repeat. And it all translates then into digital. You know, digital is just a glorified extension of everything we learned to do with just, you know, a burned tip of stick and a cave wall. It's just the evolution of all that. So yeah, I mean, it's there's no magic, you know, bullet. There's no secret tricks or tips other than just letting your passion guide you and just having a proclivity and interest, right? A lean toward what you want to do. So having a desire to do that in the first place is the first step, right? I think people who can't draw, just they don't really want to learn how to draw. If they really did, they would find someone who could help them find their flaws or their pitfalls and work their way out of it, right? Um, Even if it comes down to the most fundamental things, like people say they can't draw, well then what's your problem? Like, can't you hold the pencil correctly? Are you pressing too hard? Are you not understanding how to, you know, your own motor reflexes? Are they not, you know, in sync with what you want to do? And then you work from that point. Then you come down to like the physiological, if that's a problem, and teach someone how to hold the pencil correctly, how to gently stroke something, and then draw softer to harder. Like just a lot of like, you know, meticulous things that might have to come into alignment before they can get off and, you know, metaphorically run. Yeah, so you know, it's everyone can do it. It's just a matter if they have the will. That's it. Strength of will, and it's that strength is just made easier when people want it, right? When they just already are like, I want to do this, and I know I can do it. You know, believing in yourself is a big part of the battle, though, too. And a lot of people have self doubt and have people in their life, unfortunately, parents or friends, quote unquote friends, or people who just are naysayers, people who are, you know, haters, whatever, people who just uh, don't believe in them or will tell them they won't succeed, and that's, you know, It's a big part of why some people don't. It's because they listen to those a-holes and let them sadly affect their life in a way that has a long ripple effect down the road. But it's never too late to start. I think it's never too late to go after what you really want when it comes to career. Um, yeah, when it comes to doing what you want to do with your life, this is your one life. Just do it. Just start. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're late to the party or whatever. It's like, dude, it's your party. It's your life. Like, just get going. Just start. Anyway, sorry, missing a bunch of chat. Hmm. Work Blender, like my hard surface modeling. This is what I battle with. Yeah. What do I think of Matrix 4? The trailer, I'm excited. I'm like cautiously optimistic, I guess. It might be good. I mean, the track record of the Wachowskis since the first Matrix has only kind of, in my opinion, gone downhill for the most part. I know some people said Speed Racer's fun. I haven't seen it yet. Never really cared for the anime. So I don't really have much of a reference point or a draw to that brand. But I'm curious, I thought like the trailer for Cloud Atlas was amazing, and then I saw the film and was like, nah, it's just it was too ambitious and it just didn't hit. It didn't land correctly for me. Um, yeah, so like all their reputation after the Matrix for me is just it's been one bad film after another overall. Visually, good looking films, of course, cinematography is always good, whatever, but the writing was just bad and just not good. And storytelling. So I'm just I you know Keanu usually seems to pick really good roles. Like for the most part, he's done a few stinkers here and there, but it's like overall he's just been on such a spree. Um, so we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm really curious about it. Um, I wish I could have worked on it. Like I love the brand. I love the original. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. Or hasn't happened yet anyway. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Definitely gonna watch it. Definitely gonna go to the theater to experience it and see what happens. See how it is. It's worth seeing for once. At least once in the big screen. And then if it's great, then I'll just put it on repeat here at home on HBO Max. It's so weird that they're releasing them a day and date in theaters and at home, but I get it. Yeah, so we'll see. I'll give it a shot, give it a chance. Trailers, it was interesting. It grew on me. Like it took a while for me to really kind of like it, but the music choice in particular. But it's a smart music choice. It's very like almost on the nose, kind of too almost too on the nose. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Um, don't blink. I used to hear this from a lot of people. Issues that I fear I'm 23 and like the next thing I know I'm 30. Yeah. I'm not making solid income for 47 years. Yeah, dude, 23 is still really young, dude. I was probably around that age, I think, or maybe even older when I got started. So take that to heart, right? I can't remember exactly how old it was, but I was probably around there. I mean, it was like whatever it was. It was like I got serious about it after my first job already as an artist, where I was doing more like two-dimensional design work for laminate surface texturing, which is like the most boring job ever. But it got international travel. I got to go to great trade shows in Europe, so that was really cool. But laminate surface design, so like take your IKEA furniture, anything that has a realistic look, it looks photoreal texture, on it, that's laminated. So it's a piece of like sticky paper, basically a giant sticker that's like glued onto the surface of particle board. It looks like real wood, but as soon as you break it, it's crap. That's what I was working on. That was my first official job as an artist for a company. This was back in like I don't know what was it like 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. I forget exactly. Yeah. Um, and that's when I said I need to. It was soul sucking. It was a soul crushing job for me. Other people love it and get off on that, and that's fine. I wanted to kill myself, metaphorically. I was like, this is just draining me artistically and creatively. I'm not doing anything with humans, creatures, just nothing sculpturally. It was all just photo, like a horrible version of Photoshop, their own proprietary kind of sorry, I'm talking while I'm not sculpting. Their own proprietary software that they had. So, which was just more cumbersome than Photoshop. It gave you a bit more refined control of like dialing in colors and, you're just working with black and white images sometimes that create relief volume. So like white means it's like white is number one and black is -1, and then everything in between is a gradient of gray, and that determines like literal physical texture of things. So that they would like use certain I don't know what the right term is, like certain types of, not inks because it's not color, but it's like height volume. So they'd use certain types of adhesives, I guess, or gels or whatever that would cause raised areas. So you could have a physical texture line up with a visual texture. So you'd have like a wood grain, right? You'd have like the colors and you match you get all the colors dialed into wherever my art director wanted them to be. So mind-numbingly boring. And then you would have your physical texture that would add that feel of the real feel of surface of a wood grain on top of, I mean, as weird as you can make it with like layers of glue that, you know what I mean, or gel, whatever you want to call it, resin that's layered up on top of itself until it reaches a certain height. So you'd have the feel of like a nice polished surface wood, whatever kind of. So anyway, where's it going with that? Anyway, that was my first gig, and it was just I wanted to kill myself. Eventually, we parted ways. I was glad to be out of there, and I used a lot of those funds and time and savings to I went to the illustration masterclass, which was this incredible course. It was like 2 weeks, I think, in Amherst, Massachusetts, at Amherst College, studying under and networking with some of the best artists in the world ever that are alive today. Fantasy and science fiction artists, guys who do concept art for Star Wars and countless other movies. Met a bunch of great friends who are still friends of mine today and acquaintances. And it just really, more than anything, I didn't walk away with a finished piece like some people did. Like some really great artists walk away with like amazing masterpieces after those 2 weeks, because it's like a retreat. It's just like you and just this empty university and just these incredible artists and the kitchen staff. And then you just run around town, have a drink or two, and have fun in the evenings. It was awesome. It's great. I mean, it's also not cheap. It's like, how much, like $7,000 or something. But it was phenomenal. It was totally worth every penny. And then after that, that kind of reinvigorated I was just working on different concept pieces during that time, but that kind of got re-energized and sort of just resurrected my love for why I started getting into art in the first place. And so then I was like, all right, I got to get serious about ZBrush, because I know that's where I really want to. I understand clay and I love 3D and I understand volume, and so I need to just get back to what I really love. Um, Not realizing that I still really wanted to go for filmmaking, which is finally what I'm slowly working on now. Storytelling, like I just think much bigger. I don't think like I just want to be a cog in a machine. I think design. I think story arc. I think much bigger. But this was still like a great way to make a living and just something that I could enjoy. And it wasn't like a lot of the other jobs I had before, of course. But before even getting to the Chiodo America was the name of the Japanese company I was working for laminate surface design. Before them, I was still figuring things out. I was teaching kids art in an after-school program at an inner city youth center for, actually, it was adults and kids all ages. Do like a whole like little art class for them and help them with their homework. And then before that, I mean, I was doing in-home nursing care, taking care of elderly folks, and also waitering. Like I was like, well, actually, I did the in-home nursing care for a while until I got my last patient who was good friends with the family, like passed away, and then I was like, all right, I'm done. I can't. I don't want to keep handling these kind of emotional blows. You develop a great relationship with people, and you care about them, you love them, and then you watch them pass on. It's rough. And before that, I was working the ER, which was even the same thing, kind of worse because it's more rapid fire. So yeah, I thought I wanted to be in medicine. For those who don't know, I was pursuing that seriously. It's biology pre-med major and worked in ER for like 2.5 years. Anyway, so then did transition to in-home nursing care to have longer term relationships with patients who still want to pass it on. And then it's like, all right, screw this. So then I just did I just was like, rolled up my sleeves and said, whatever, did the landscaping and did waitering, worked my way up to find like really nice fine dining waitering for a couple of years, while I would do art in the evenings, or in the daytime, I should say, because then most of the time waitering was in the evenings and weekends. Yeah, and just, did a lot of that, a lot. It was kind of fun. It was also like kind of shitty. It's a mixture of that. Food service sucks. I mean, especially when people don't treat you well, which is a lot. Even in the higher end restaurants are a bit better. You do have a classier, clientele, but sometimes it can be real dicks too, of course. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, you gotta have some hustle. You gotta have some grit. You gotta have some, just, gotta be willing just to take some on the chin and just keep going. you gotta know where your heart is and where your destiny lies to be so grand. You gotta know where you're headed in life. You gotta have that, even if it's just a seed of an inkling of just like, I know what I can do and I know what I'm capable of and I know where I want to be and I know I can do it. I just don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I'm gonna start. It's like every journey starts with one first step forward, right? Like just do something to start moving that snowball, even if it's like a speck of sand. You got to push something forward, and hopefully, you take some steps back. Unfortunately, some life knocks you back down. Things will happen, but it's just, again, it's a matter of resilience, perseverance. Um, like a lot of songs and cliche quotes and whatever else people tell you and say, it's true. I mean, if you want to succeed, it's you know, life life is not fair to everybody, and it's not fair for most people. So like, there's always going to be challenges and hardships along the way, but you've got to believe, as cliche as it is, you got to believe in yourself. You got to know what you want to do and what you can do, and also then be humble enough to learn and be teachable and learn from people who are beyond you and older and wiser or just more successful, and be teachable, right? Like, you have to be able to be taught. You have to be able to be receptive to information and criticism and critique, even from the mean-spirited people, like even from the haters and the dicks. Sometimes their points are valid. They might be assholes about it, but they actually might be speaking truth, unfortunately, and they just might do it in a very mean, cruel way. So you almost got to be able to take the skin off of that bone, even though it may be really tough. You have to be able to take the meat off of that bone, I should say. Yeah, and so it's a matter of just realizing, like, everyone is a teacher in the end. Like, one way or the other, you can learn something, even if it's from just how not to behave, right, or how not to treat other human beings, or how not to engage or disengage with people, whatever, you know what I mean, or how just to communicate information or not. Everyone is a teacher in some form or another, and realizing that, it'll help you kind of have a bit more zen through times where you could have a much more like reactionary, emotional, angry, negative experience. Sometimes you got to just let those things roll over you and they wash over you, and eventually get accustomed, a little thicker skin. Having a thick skin is a good thing. You need to, but that takes development. That's like, it's not something most people have from the get-go. It usually comes from being brutalized in some way, through life, which most of us have to deal with in some form. Especially if you're not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, life is more challenging. Then again, too, most people who come from extreme wealth often aren't these kind of creators. It's usually people who have grit, who've come from a lower or middle or even upper middle class home that didn't have everything just given to them. And especially with the arts, though, even if you have money, it makes maybe purchasing courses easier, but it doesn't, it's not the Matrix, right? You can't just jack in and just learn what you want to learn. You still have to put the work in. And yeah, I think pursuing what you really want in life, it requires a certain amount of that, again, that kind of just work ethic, right? Just saying, like, I know what I want to do and I'm going to work my ass off to do it. And just rolling up your sleeves and just punching through the hardships, right? Just keep moving. Finding your momentum in life and then finding that groove, and just kind of like, it will get hard. It's definitely hard at times, man. Like, I kind of hit the reset button when I moved to LA, because I was having a successful, the beginning of a successful artistic career. After Chewed America, I was doing some other freelance stuff, and then I got hired by Sight and Sound Theaters to be one of their main 3D artists for set design and giant statues and all kinds of massive sets. Like, you can look at my portfolio and see like the big Moses statue, but there's like so many other pieces and sets and crazy detail, realistic things that were just all over the stage that I wasn't able to show. Um, and it was stuff that was like 2, 3 stories tall. It's just like awesome, really cool stuff, So things were going well there. But again, eventually just reached a point of no return. One of my bosses was kind of a real dick. Had it out for me, and so we parted ways after about a year there. And kind of thrown in the deep end. He like let me go right before Thanksgiving. It was like a terrible, really shitty way to do it. Um, but again, like, life just kind of kicks you in the butt. So, like, just gives you a gut punch, and you just gotta like just take it and just be like, all right, well, f you. I'm gonna go past this. I'm gonna blow past you. You're just gonna be a thought, barely a memory in the end. And you can't let those painful moments define you. But then you gotta use them as, like, the bumps are what you climb on. That cliche, right? Like, that's how you climb a mountain. It's like you gotta have some rough surface to grip onto and to like traverse. Um, yeah. So anyway, sorry. Just yeah, it's life is hard. Like, there's no short way around it. There's no other way to say it. Like, life is not usually a cakewalk, right? There's struggle. And it's the people who suffer and who go through hard times and who struggle that often have the better story, and they often will find the success they're looking for, right? It's not, again, it's never going to be exactly the way you would want it to be. Life never goes according to plan, like ever, really, sadly. But it doesn't mean you still can't get to where you want to be or where you're hoping to be. It's just a matter of time and understanding, like just having a bit of that kind of Zen, long term, long goal, like miles long vision of where you want to be in life down the road, and understanding that you know where the end goal is, and just knowing not how you're going to get there exactly, but you're going to figure it out as you make your way there. That's the kind of spirit, that's the kind of mentality that you need. So I just bump. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully that's encouraging or helpful. I don't know. Sorry, I wanted to move my mouse over to the other screen for a second to scroll through the rest of the chat. Sorry, I'm gonna get to this cheek here in a minute. Love to bring emotion and atmosphere into a video or scene. I show that people and make people feel what I feel. Watch it. Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely. I feel the same way. That's why I want to go into filmmaking. I feel like I have very unique and thrilling and grand stories to tell that no one has done yet. And I also understand the whole business of marketing and appeal and making a product in the end. This is show business, right? Like I understand even though you have ideas, you have to make it marketable. It has to be appealing to a broad audience. Like you have to have universal appeal and messages and ideas. And so I get all that. Like I get the business side of things, the technical, manipulative, really almost is what it is. You're emotionally manipulating the audience, the public that you're working with to sell a product, right? You have to appeal to their senses in some way. And I get all that. It's just good storytelling that we see so few of now. And I think it's because a lot of, distribution and Hollywood companies just are risk adverse and don't want to put a lot of money behind original IP and good ideas, or risky ideas. So we see a lot of the same crap, a lot of remakes, and I feel like we're starting to see a little bit of a breakout of that now, slightly, as new IP seems to be doing well in certain areas. Even as something that seems as much of a made product as like Free Guy, it's a great movie, and it has more heart than you'd think, and it's funny, and well acted and well shot and all that. So Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds, it's out currently. It's great. I'd go see it again. And it's original IP, and it's done really well. So that's really encouraging. That's great. We need more success stories like that, so that more original creators and more original ideas and ideas of value can be put out there. So yeah, so I hear you, dude. I'm on board. When creating sculpts for printing, do you use topology similar to that for games animation, or do you simply use ZBrush? No, I do, exactly. That's what I'm using right now. This is animation ready topology. So as you can see, as I was saying earlier, let me turn on the wireframe without the color. This is all extremely animation friendly. This is all ready to go as far as animation goes. We've got all the edge flow in the right places. Could totally just put some mocap to this, and a good rig, and animate Keanu saying stuff. It'd be a lot of work to do that, but yeah, it could be done. This is ready to go as far as a model is concerned. This is ready to go, but obviously not textured and detailed yet, but otherwise, yeah. So yeah, I always use good topology. I always work with good topology whenever I sculpt something for 3D printing. It just makes life easier, because people think, oh well, it's just facilitating. I mean, people think that topology that's good for animation is only good for animation, but actually no, it's also really good for sculpting, because having edge loops and the flow of polygons flow in the direction of how your face compresses. If you're going for any kind of expression, you want the topology to work with you, right? It leans into the flow of what you're doing versus fighting you. Literally, directionality of your polygon's flow helps or aids your like expressions and the wrinkles and minute details like that people may not think from a outside perspective, but from the inside technical side of things, you want your topology to flow in the direction of your sculptural patterns and where things are going to wrinkle or compress. So it just makes your sculpts look so much better when you have like clean, good topology versus just dynameshing something. You'll eventually going to get that stair-stepping pattern of the voxels, right, of your polygons, because they won't be flown in diagonal shape, or like however something should elegantly flow or curve. It's not going to follow this path. It's just going to be robotic and rigid and just like, just polygonal, just like projected grids basically, and that's not going to flow with any kind of organic shape really. So you can subdivide it far enough where it's like, you know, your polygons are like that of a pixel, and then it's like you're working with hundreds of millions of polygons. Yeah, sure, then you can do anything with that, and it doesn't matter when it just comes to the visual aesthetic. But you're also just, that's kind of the dumb way of doing it, really. It's kind of like, it's not the most elegant or intelligent way of doing things. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like you can kill a, maybe you can kill a fly with a shotgun, or you can, you know, be more surgical and use a fly swatter or the appropriate tool. You know what I mean? But when you just dynamesh everything, it's an easy way to kind of just get through certain problems. And it's definitely helpful in certain areas too. Like when you're 3D printing, dynameshing is a good thing toward the end when you want to seal up holes, or you can also like Boolean, of course, is a good option. But point is, clean topology is your friend. So again, doing things the right way, you know, measure twice, cut once, the whole thing, like take the right steps from the beginning, so that then even if there's like changes you need to make, or if a client says like, oh, we like that, but can you do this change? If you don't have clean topology, you might have to redo things, like the entire thing perhaps, or, you know, entire part of a model or something. But if you start with clean topology from the beginning, you're operating from a wise point. So then everything will flow and be easier to edit, change, improve, whatever. And that's how I work with whatever I'm working on, personal or professional. Start with clean topology, have it be in the, you know, in order, so that if a client needs changes done, you can do them quickly, efficiently, and you're not redoing something entirely. Yeah. So yeah. Um, feel like it might be good if they have something to tell. If it's just a Matrix movie, to make a Matrix movie, it's yeah, yeah. If it's a cash grab, you're saying, yeah. Who knows? Um, if man, if life has no obstacles, it won't be fun. Yeah, we're all gonna be depressed. Yeah, you need challenges. It's resistance, right? Like working out, you need resistance. Otherwise, you don't build strength. It's very simple. So it's like gravity. If you stay in space, zero gravity, it's easy and it's fun, but your body will degenerate quickly. We need gravity. We need resistance. You know, you need that to strengthen and grow. Um, it's how we're built, right? We're designed for that necessity. Um, certain level of hardship to some degree, you could call it. Looking for Houdini projects, and I see 10-second clips having 600 gigabyte caches. Wow. Should I get a 15 terabyte SSD space but more speed and better performance, or an HHD or HDD with 30 terabytes? It's up to you, man. I don't know. It's a good question. Damn, 700 gigabyte caches. God, that must be a massive project, or just a lot of data, I guess, right? Just a lot of particles, whatever. Houdini does a lot. Like, you can do so much in Houdini. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I would say get both. I mean, it's a lot of money, though. I know. It's not cheap. Again, if it's your work, if it's your, you know, it's your profession, yeah, get an SSD and get a big, you know, regular hard disk. Maybe downgrade the SSD a little bit for price, you know, to accommodate your spending a little bit better. And just put your most crucial, critical software on the SSD, and then put things that, like projects that you know what I mean? Almost maybe distribute it where, if you can, tell your cache to be on the SSD, but make sure it's deleted when you close out when you don't need it. And because you need quick draw, you want cache to be there on you know, ready. Although maybe it's loaded into the RAM, I guess, so maybe it would be fine if it's on the hard drive, on the hard disk. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how, because I don't use Houdini. I mean, I've used it, but I'm not like at all professional in it. So I'm not sure how it distributes, you know, the innards of everything, how it distributes file caching, and where it draws it from, and how it draws it, why it needs it, when and where. I know obviously for animation and that kind of thing, but yeah, so I don't really know. I mean, but I would say probably get both, really, because that's like in my machine I have. Do I have? Yeah, I think I have one hard disk, and then everything else are SSDs. So the main the MV and ME M.2 drives, right? Two of those on the main motherboard, and then like I think two, maybe they're all SSDs. I forget. I think they're all SSDs actually. But then I have bigger hard disks, or bigger SSDs that aren't the M.2 drives, but are the larger, like, you know, 2.5-inch drives. But they're all SSDs. Yeah, I would go with SSD. Just also get whenever you get an SSD, make sure you download software that will diagnose the health of your SSDs, because they have a limited lifespan, just like anything else. Excuse me. But with like a hard disk, you know, like a traditional platter that you can take that apart. You can take it to a specialist. They can open it up and take that platter, and if it's not been scratched or damaged, but like other mechanisms in the mechanical drive have failed, you can take it out and put it into a new compartment with new components and have all your data still there. With an SSD, you're talking about ions, and you're talking about like really tiny micro switches being flipped from electricity, really. So I think it's pretty hard to, if impossible, to salvage certain damaged cells within an SSD once that's happened. So you always want to back them up, and you always want to keep an eye on the health of your SSDs, meaning intermittently throughout the year. If you're using it really heavily, sooner, more frequently. If you're using it less heavily, of course, you know, extend the amount of time when you check on things. But keep an eye on. There's programs like, I'm speaking from experience, not that I've had one fail yet, but I have a whole slew of Samsung drives, and they have a great app that lets you analyze the health of every single drive and how many times it's been written to, how many times things have been overwritten, all this, you know, nerdy data. But it really helps you keep an eye on your health of your drives, so that when it's starting to get into an area where it's rewritten multiple times the same cells, you know that that area's health is going down. So you want to offload everything. You want to put all that stuff on another drive that's fresh and new, so that inevitably when the time comes when that drive kicks the bucket, you're not going to be, you know, left high and dry with everything lost and gone. So backing up's really important for any drive, but especially SSDs, only because it's so hard or impossible, depending on damage and whatever's happened, to reclaim any of that data. So also like you know, putting stuff up on Dropbox and the cloud, some sort of cloud service, Google Drive, whatever. Putting it off site is also really smart, especially your most crucial files that aren't private or too sensitive. Personal stuff, like, you know, personal stuff you value, not maybe necessarily personal information, but I mean like files, artistic folders, files, that kind of thing. Put them on a cloud service somewhere, so that it's on a server outside of just your box. God forbid, in case a disaster happens, your catastrophic failure of electronics, or someone breaks in and steals something, God forbid, you know, like any of those things. If any catastrophic event happens where you lose access to the data on those drives, your most important stuff, your most beloved things, your best work is somewhere else backed up that's away from your house, just in case. So that's always a good idea. Yeah. So sorry, long answer for hard drive questions. Um, Fair enough. That's enough to guide me in the right direction. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, Lord Luigi Riggs. Period. Interesting. Didn't know there's that much to SSD. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get a RAID. Yeah, RAID AS. Yep, NAS. One drive dies, depending on the RAID type. Yep, you can swap in a new drive and not lose it. Exactly. Yeah, that's something else I need to do. That's a very good point. Is I've always known about RAIDs. I just haven't done it in ever. I need to. Um, that also takes a little bit of capital up front too, because you're buying, you know, multiple, at least four, three, four. And I think you need at least three. Maybe you can do it two, but I think you need at least three or four to really have a good RAID and have it write the same data across all four in a way. So like, yeah, if one dies, it can recompile that same information so that new drive, put it in there, and it recreates what you lost. It's very smart. And something I haven't done yet, but also because, again, it's not cheap, and I've sort of just been okay with backing things up otherwise. But it's very smart. It's a good idea to do that for sure. Um, anyway, yeah, we're almost at an hour already. I might go a little bit over an hour, but I really gotta. Whoa, I really got to get going. Going here. See how these look. Sometimes these alphas are way too strong. Yeah, like it's not what he needs. Yeah, no. I should open up Pure Rough again too, so I can look back at his mug and get some details right. There we go. So this is a good, just so you guys see what I'm working with off camera, off screen. It's a good close-up shot from, I think, the first Matrix, or a shot from the Matrix Reloaded, but either way, pretty good clean shot of his face with, you know, minimal makeup. Just helps me kind of see the flow of things. I mean, you know, pretty standard. He's got a very clean face, which is great. So it's pretty standard details when it comes to the pores and whatnot. But still always helpful to see the actor's face versus just generic landmarks for types of skin detail. Need 3 to have good grade at minimum. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, thank you, Afix 2000. Second one, I think he has hair. Oh yeah, good point. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. He has hair. Exactly. Yeah, it's got to be. I feel like that shot is actually from the Matrix Reloaded trailer. I think that either the teaser trailer, I think it's a teaser trailer actually, because I remember that shot where he's right. That's the shot right before he closes his eyes, and then I think they like cut to black, and then they have either a flash from some action sequence in the second one or the third. So one of those. Anyway, good eye, good idea, good point. The hair. All right. So we need to get the mustache skin detail. Do they have something for that? Sort of, yeah, right here, I guess. Just drawing it out to see what the pore detail looks like. Hmm. And this is that level of detail where it's like even in the film, it's kind of blurry, the grain, everything kind of, and his you know, the 5 o'clock shadow is kind of interfering with perceiving the right amount of detail. That's okay, whatever. I think it looks about right. It's just a little too strong. Just want a bit more. That's too weak. Just want that. It's like, you know, certain things in the subtlety of art are a lot like it's finding that super fine balance of certain elements to mix together correctly. That I always feel like there's a certain level of that the hand touch, because I was studying medicine and I was observing the surgeries, and I was thinking like that. And I think I would have enjoyed surgery, definitely. Maybe that's probably where I should have gone in some ways when it came to medicine, but then I wouldn't be here, likely. But the fine, the detailed, because I'm such a detail freak, you know, when it comes to that. When it comes to personal projects that I have an interest in getting the details right to make it a really powerful overall, you know, psychotically impacting piece. Psychotically meaning just the obsession, the level of detail I go to with a lot of things. Um, that there's a hand touch when it comes to surgery is the same level of just that minutia, attention to detail, and just being careful with how you do things. It's always just, it's like almost like a game, not in like a dismissive way, but I mean like it just, there's a gamification, there's a challenge to nail something just right, to hit that mark, you know, that level of precision. uh it's like just like with phlebotomy. Like I did a lot of phlebotomy, just drawing blood. So you use needles, of course, to get in the vein. And there was always that's something I miss still. Is there's a certain level of fun, as bizarre as it sounds. Not that I'm into needles or blood at all. I don't do drugs, but the challenge of getting into the vein correctly the first time. Certain patients had thinner, smaller veins, especially elderly folk. They have these very small veins. You know, like certain people have good vascularity, like I do. You know, you can just pump your fist a couple times and you have a really nice radial vein, which is right there in your the inside the compression of your elbow. And that's, you know, when you have a nice thick vein there, that's an easy, it's just like a giant cavernous opening for a needle or for a phlebotomist versus elderly folks when you have to go in for like an IV in the hand or something, and they have these really spindly, small, kind of shrunken capillaries. You're like, oh, you gotta get a little butterfly needle. And I don't know if anyone out there has been in medicine, but you know what I'm talking about if you have. Um, but it's still, there's that level of just like like playing, I don't know, in a first person shooter, or I don't even Mario, I don't know, any video game you ever played, and you just have to get something just right in the right timing or the right, you know, moment. And it's just minute little adjustments you're making, that this is like a weird obsessive little amount of detail. Or working on electronics. So something else I've been getting more into over the last few years is understanding and not being afraid of working on a, you know, on a PCB or a printed circuit board, and understanding how to solder very small tiny connections where you have to use a magnifying glass and a very steady hand. And there's something about that, the challenge and the success and what the results are of that work, and the success of it, successfully executing specific tasks that are very detail specific, but the broad picture impact is huge. That's, I don't know, bizarrely appealing to me. And that's something that's never really left me, is that obsessive level of like minutia detail. um yeah, so anyway, art has that same kind of, it's an echo, it's in a parallel path, right? There's a similar trajectory to it all, where if you get all those elements working in concert together, you achieve a greater whole, right? Than the sum of the parts are greater than the parts themselves. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. um Whatever, you know what I mean. Can't think right now. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. There we go. That's the phrase I'm looking for. Jeez, can't speak. So anyway, all that to say, it's always an interesting challenge to find that right balance when it comes to skin details and other details, sculpturally. Just that subtlety is important. You need too heavy of a hand or too soft of a hand, and it just doesn't communicate, doesn't convey visually across the way it should. Shoot, I have the dynamic on. I thought you could set it up so dynamic is always off in all brushes, but I'm missing something, I think, because I still have that problem with um, I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah, remember dynamic mode per brush. But does that mean remember to turn it on all the time, or does that mean to keep it off? I don't know. Let's try turning that way. Let's storing config. I just don't want dynamic on any brush ever. It's just never, I never find it useful. It's just always a hindrance. And I do want to give a shout out again to my buddies over at Sense Labs, just because I'm using it all the time. I'm using this daily. This thing is awesome. And it just, for me, it also, I'm not even holding it. I originally thought I'd be holding this controller like this in my hand a lot, because I'm a gamer. I mean, like when I have time. But as I started doing that, and then I realized I'm just standing more at the desk all day, or sitting here and working on, you know, everything. Uh, I found that more naturally, I just want to have my hands at an ergonomic angle, just resting on the desk. So I wound up having this down on the desk. If you guys want to see, so Sense Labs with an X, they sent me this amazing remote, which is awesome, and you can program it. It has all these beautiful little OLED displays in there, which tell you what is that backwards? It is backwards, right? Oh shit, I forgot. I flipped this because for work, when we have Zoom calls or whatever, Zoom flips the image. So let me go, there we go. Oops, sorry about that. So now you can read it. So you can see like it says shift, control, you know, whatever, edit, pivot, space, all that stuff. So stuff that I would have for Maya or ZBrush, I just, you can create multiple presets. So anyway, a huge thank you to Sense Labs again and my friends over there. It's a great product. It's awesome. I love it. Came with a tablet, and I use that as well sometimes, most of the time actually lately, because I might have one project on my Cintiq and on my Mobile Studio Pro, and then I'll have another project on my other monitors. So I might be doing a couple things at the same time or whatever, or just what I mean, just divide things up in a different way. And so it's helpful to have both a Cintiq for what I'm doing right now, and then other times when I'm working in Maya, where it's not really sculptural so much as it's more just like point pushing or like rotation or whatever, transition and scaling. It's just mostly mouse clicks, or like I'll just use this but on a tablet and I still look there, so it's like a mouse. So anyway, yeah. So Sense Labs, check them out. They're awesome. Definitely legit. I wouldn't even say competition, but I would say they're almost surpassing or matching easily Wacom as far as their tablets are concerned. Pretty cool. And they so far really haven't. I've had one or two little snags here and there, but otherwise, for the most part, it's pretty consistent. And I've never had to really reinstall the drivers, like the headache that Wacom has had in the past, and still has sometimes, where something just won't connect or the computer won't read your device, and so then you have to just restart the whole computer, which is a real pain in the ass. Or especially when you're in the middle of something, you have to open up all the software again and like log in through encrypted stuff, and it's like you gotta sign your VPN, and it's like, oh my god, it's like so much stuff just to fix a tablet instead of being able to like just have it work, or even like not as good but still better would be to not have to restart the whole computer, but just have the drivers work, like restart the drivers. Tried a bunch of other things like that in the past with Wacom, and it still requires a lot of times for me just to restart the computer, which is annoying. Even with this thing, with the Mobile Studio Pro, unfortunately, it will at times, if I disconnect the USB-C and then reconnect it, it won't read. It'll read the display, but it won't read the stylus. So then I'm like, all right, I still have to restart the computer. So anyway, Wacom, fix your stuff, please. Figure that out. It's so annoying, and it's such a killer of efficiency. Anyway, sorry, complaining. Yeah, sorry. So we got that. All right. Once we get to like 3:30, I'm out of here. The second one has this. Yeah. On surgeries, you can't make mistakes though. Yeah, actually, unfortunately, they do happen though a lot. Yeah, you shouldn't be making mistakes, but people are human, and doctors do make mistakes, and it happens more frequently than you know. And that's why they have malpractice insurance, and that's why they're also held to a high standard. Is because it's pretty serious, you know. Yeah, yeah. I know some people dealing with that right now. Errors were made, and it's no joking matter. It's like you can be a nice doctor. I'm sure you guys have heard, some of you have heard that. If your doctor's nice, like the stats behind doctors and lawsuits and all that, right? Interesting. If doctors are really pleasant and really good with people, they have good soft skills, really like charismatic and kind, the odds of them being sued for making a mistake are far less than a doctor who's a dick, someone who's just really cold and treats someone like meat. You know what I mean? Like just cattle, which is with a lot of doctors I met in the past, in the ERs I worked at. Um, they would treat people badly, very cold, very dismissive, and just not look at the mind or the heart of someone, and just disregard that and just treat them as a series of systems that need to be fixed and aligned, and just very cold, very impersonal. And I could never do that. I could never treat someone like that. It just didn't, and that's why I left eventually. Is because not that I was getting cold at all, but just because the stress, the emotional trauma of seeing people suffer, especially innocent people pass away. It got too much. It was just, I don't want to be depressed all the time. I don't want to be sad all the time, and I don't want to become so cold or disconnected that I can't function, or that I'm functioning, but I mean that I can function, but that I'm not. I'm being dehumanizing the person. Then. So that's always this weird. And there's some people who are great at it. They can balance that great. That's their gift. That's like their calling. That's what they're meant to do. I felt like this journey where I'm on now is where I was supposed to be. And so it was, yeah, it was like a mixture of guilt and of not feeling like I was abandoning a meaningful pursuit, physically tangible, meaningful pursuit of in life of helping people physically, to go do something that I felt was almost like stupidly like hedonistic. Right, I'm just going to please myself. I'm just going to like make myself happy with what I want to do. Obviously, not thinking about the fact that I can still, if I want, which I do, bring significance and meaning and purpose and depth to the art that I want to create, and have a positive impact on people that can be in many ways universally appreciated and have value, right? Like not just create sugary candy entertainment, but real substance and meat, something that can people can walk away um, and evaluate and mull over and think about. Like the films that you walk away, I like to think. I like mental engagement, cerebral engagement. So I love films like The Matrix or Interstellar. Even 2001 Space Odyssey to some degree. I think it's a little boring, honestly. Still, it's a little too much quiet for my taste, honestly. If I'm being, because there's certain art snobs or film snobs who be like, "Oh, Kubrick stuff is the best." Oh my god, like, dude, let's be real. Like, it's boring as fuck sometimes. Like, there's some, it's interesting for sure, but it's like so much silence, so much long, slow, quiet, dead silent shots. It's like I get it, but like, dude, pacing, like you're gonna lose most people. Like I can't count how many times I've fallen asleep watching 2001: Space Odyssey as a child. I haven't really rewatched it as an adult in a long time, but it's like seen clips, like a lot of clips. But still, it's just like, man, get to the point, dude. Like we get it, but yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I appreciate Interstellar a lot more. I feel like Christopher Nolan really has pacing down. I could have gone for an extra like 30, 40 minutes of Interstellar personally, because I loved it. But anyway, so but meaning, depth, and storytelling, that's what I always want to bring to the table. Value, things that will stick with people, and they'll walk away out of the theater saying like, wow, like I really want to think about it. I want to talk. I need to go talk with somebody after this. Like I need to go get coffee or dinner and just process, talk about things. Um, yeah, those are the kind of things that I want to create, and that's what I always appreciated as a child. And yeah, just taking someone on a great adventure, but then there's so much substance to it that it's entertainment and education. So edutainment. You know what I mean? Like Michael Crichton's books. I always loved his books because I learned something so interesting, and ideas of value and science, and was also highly entertained. So I learned something new. Then it funneled me down a path of looking up what is DNA and how does it really work. When I was a kid, Jurassic Park, nanotech and prey. Questions of time travel and what could be done with incredible power if given to humanity through Sphere. Like there's some great books. What would it be like to talk with an animal in Congo? And apes enable sign language and speak. And now we're seeing dogs can kind of do that, really. So they just press buttons. Have you seen these dogs? There are these dogs out there that have been trained. One is owned by a speech pathologist, so a scientist who her job is to help children who have a difficulty communicating to bridge that gap and be able to communicate through other means. So she took that same mentality and that same approach when she got this puppy, and she saw that the dog had a certain like mental acuity of that of like of a 10-year-old or younger, when kids are just I should say much younger than 10, I think, but she said that it was about that. Now I think the language is close to that of a 10-year-old or something like that, maybe younger, but still the dog has a huge amount of buttons now on this board and will press buttons that have different words and phrases, and it's a sentence. Like it puts together sentences of what it wants, or even when it just wants to say I love you, it presses the appropriate buttons and it knows what it's saying. Crazy. So anyway, that's sorry, side note, but yeah, Congo, great book. Look it up. If you haven't read Congo, get the audiobook or buy the novel. The movie's fine. I think it's fun. It was an enjoyable 1990 whatever 6 movie. It's a fun adventure movie. Sure, campy for sure, but still fun. I enjoyed it. Stan Winston's crew did a great job with the gorilla suits. They looked really real. And the gray gorillas are kind of terrifying. Awesome. Some pretty cool combat scenes at the end with a laser. But yeah, that huge question of what would it be like to talk with an animal and have them understand and vice versa. We're kind of getting there now, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, Congo presented that idea before anyone had done anything like this with dogs. And it seemed like they would work. Like it really seemed like plausible. Like, an animal that can sign language, just have a computer that can interpret those physical motions, like a Wiimote, like doing all these hand gestures, have something that can interpolate the finger motion and rotation and translation of the hand and the wrist and understand, those commands will equal language, sign language, and then just have it speak those the sign language. And I don't know why we haven't done that yet for apes, or why it hasn't succeeded. Maybe the movements are too general and it's like a human mind needs to be able to comprehend them. But I think now with like cameras and AI, machine learning, I would think we'd probably be able to piece it together from a more visual standpoint than from a mechanical one. I would think cameras, like 3 cameras or something on the animal's hand would probably be able to translate it into language versus something that could be broken and is on the physical animal. Anyway, Michael Crichton's a genius, and he always introduced these great ideas in his books. And I don't know, that always just drew me in as a kid. I was just like, man, this is intelligent and entertaining, and in some ways almost useful because it takes you down a mental path of like what if, and what if based in real science and technology. And it's to me that's like the greatest of science fiction because it's rooted in real science. It's fictional, but it's just like stuff that's like out of reach. It's in tomorrow. It's like things that you could just see around the corner. Like you feel like it really could happen. Um, yeah. So anyway, sorry, long tangent. Um, anyway, we're almost at 3:30. Yeah, so I'm gonna bounce at 3:30 because, like I said, I have a lot of work to do. But if anyone has any other questions or musings, feel free to drop them in the chat. Um, what else am I looking for here? I got the chin, and gonna need the nose. I think one of these is good for the nose. Yeah, probably one of these. Cheek pores, nose pores. There we go. All right, let's do the chin. See how this goes. Oh, let's just draw it out just quick just to see. That doesn't help. It has the. All right. Gotta look back at his reference. It's close. Neo Terminator. Get down. I love Arnold, even though he's had some pretty pretty dumb things to say lately. Screw your freedom. Arnold, what are you saying, dude? Whoa. Accidental. Dang. All right. Go for the nose. It's really working though. It's great. It's always fun to see things come together like this, right? I mean, it looks like off a little bit or just too smooth or just something's still missing, and then when you start getting those pore details and there's that fine micro detail stuff, that's always when something really starts to come to life, and so it's fun. So it's fun to see that happening. So I'm right at this point with some other projects now, and it's really fulfilling. It's really fun to see um, kind of a near finished product coming to life, and to know that it was in your hands. You did the work. So it was rewarding. And it's funny when people from the outside, clients, whenever they're looking at something and they may not see it finished yet or may not quite have the same imagination, the same vision as you for something, but when you know where you're going and you can get there, and it's just like, no, just hang on, just wait, you'll see, and be able then to like hopefully over deliver, and yeah, it's always fun. It's always really rewarding. Um, and it's sort of comforting too to have that level of confidence to know that you can do it, and that it's just time, it's just a matter of time, and maybe sometimes you have to accelerate that a little bit, push the gas, but still, it's always like satisfying. It's always like, again, it's kind of that dopamine hit. It's a different way of dopamine delivery, but it's still like playing a video game and succeeding at some point, right? Or playing a sport and getting that throw just right. You know what I mean? Like right under the second. Just I love basketball as a kid. Um, yeah, this is so it's fun. So it's fun when you get to that point when your abilities, your abilities, and it's just a matter of time to get from point A to point B. That was fun. But it's not without tons of hard work leading up to that moment, right? Like the strokes may look perfect or things may come together in the end in the moment of someone watching it, but it's taken years and lots of work and sacrifice to get to that point where you can be assertive in your abilities and know that you can deliver on time or, wherever they need it to be and how they need it to be. And to know to have that confidence even when they might doubt you or be afraid or be like, where's this thing going? Like, let's get going. Um, yeah, so it was cool to have that experience. How to turn off pen pressure in ZBrush? Good question. Pen pressure. I don't know that I've ever wanted to turn off pen pressure, but um, there is a place for that for sure. Forget where it is because it's not something I ever really want to do. Um, I mean, you could just use a mouse, but no. Good question. In brush, yeah, I think so, right? Yeah, it's probably in brush. Tablet pressure. There you go. I guess this is where you could turn it off, right? Use global settings, uh, and then maybe mess with um, Z intensity. I think that's it. Um, or is there anything in draw? I feel like there's a button, like one of these, like kind of square buttons that has something to do with that too. But I can't remember right now. It's in stroke. Um, I don't know. I'm really not sure because that's not something that I really want to do. I've had it happen accidentally when something, messes up. But yeah, I think that'd probably be worth a Google versus me trying to find it on here because it's not something that I typically would want. I always want pen pressure, and sometimes it's not available, like when you're working remotely and you're channeling into another computer. So that's always a little bit frustrating, but you just deal with it. But to have that pressure sensitivity, so when you go harder, you get more depth or thicker, widening of your affected area versus more gently and soft, and you have very thin, fine lines or very little indentation to whatever you're working on. It's great. It just gives that human touch that you wouldn't have with a binary just on off, like 0 1 effect with the mouse. This gives you all that gradation, the spectrum of effect. It's a little too harsh. In Stager, I've got position fixed, but I'm using Dynamesh or Sculptress. Will Stager still work? Stager. That's the new thing, right? The new feature. Honestly, I haven't. It's terrible to say. I know. I haven't really used Stager. I haven't really had a direct need to. I feel like I could actually be using it now on a current project that I'm on, and I probably should, or should have. I guess I'm probably a little too far along now, but that's a good question, and I'm sorry I don't know the answer to. Just haven't messed with it really that much. Because I'm not sure if that's because yeah, Dynamesh. My guess would be that it might create a problem. Like you may not be able to, because you're changing the entire vert count, right? Like when you do ZRemesh or Dynamesh or Sculptress, your vert count's completely changed, right? So everything's different. So I would think that might affect it, but I don't know if it's looking at volume of the object versus the vertice count. So those are two extremely different things. So I don't know. Sorry. Something I should. It's good you ask because it's something I should be aware of. Because we got the summit coming up, and I feel like if anyone else asks me these kind of questions, I should have the answer. So it's something I need to do. It's on my to-do list. It's just been so busy with work, just nonstop, day and night, that practicing with new features that have no application directly to most of what I'm doing, it just can't be on my priority list right now. Once these projects are done, of course, I'll have more free time to experiment with those kind of things. And what little free time I have is time used to decompress and just sleep and eat and walk the dog and have some sanity looking away from a screen for like 5 minutes. So yeah. So sorry, I just haven't really had the time to put into learning all the new features. But I look at Stager and I'm thinking now, like I should have something I should have actually like put some effort into learning before now because it would have helped me with certain projects I'm working on. But I'm already far past that point, I think, at this point for me. So whatever, yeah, life goes on. Would have made life a little bit easier, but no big deal. Anyway. It's like I'm seeing little areas of repetition where it's sort of like mechanically replicated. So I think I might have to smooth out some areas and then like redraw certain things, but or resculpt them, I should say. I hate it when people say, "Did you draw that?" I'm like, "No, I sculpted it." But okay, yeah, sure, I drew it. And here I am saying that. Guilty. Uh, it's because of emotion. Of course, you're still acting like you're not holding something in virtual reality. They do make that though, and I would love if ZBrush would do something like that. But I have to try it out. I still haven't bought one of those, but there's Medium by Facebook. I guess owns them now, but it was Oculus for a while. Medium is pretty cool. It doesn't have the same power as ZBrush by any means. You can't really do exactly the same things you can do with ZBrush, but in fact, you can be working in virtual reality, so things are one-to-one scale with your body and your face. It's pretty cool. Uh, yeah, and there's some other thing. I forget what it's called. Starts with a K, I think. Kudum, Koda. I forget what it's called. I think it starts with a K. It's a weird name. But that's something else that's out there. It's like virtual reality sculpting. So I have the headset. I just haven't had time to really investigate that kind of stuff. But I should. All right, so we're at 3:32. So I'm probably gonna bounce here. Any last minute questions? Any burning questions before I skedaddle? Who says skedaddle? I haven't said that word in forever. Skedaddle. For the eyes, you have extruded pupil inside. What about the outside liquid layer as iris? Will you make and render it ZBrush for any other place? I mean, yeah, if I wanted to render it, I would definitely add that. I think I think I still have that layer. It's just another, piece of geometry that's in the shape of the eyeball with the lens. I just don't have that here because, I want to be able to see the eyes. Um, excuse me. But when it comes to the actual model, I think I might just leave it like it is. Because to create clear lenses that small, it's almost, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm still debating. Like I could do it. I mean, I did like 3D printed eyes for Trico over here, which you guys can barely see because it's like a microscope on that um on that video feed. But I made clear eyes for him. But I don't think Neo will be that big. The eyes will be pretty small. So, and plus he's gonna be wearing sunglasses, so I don't think it would really read at all. So probably no. But yeah, I mean, if this was just something that was going to be a render, of course, yeah. I mean, I would, again, this isn't done at all, right? The irises will have the iris detail of all the tiny musculature inside every iris, um, surrounding the pupil and all that, and even put like little bumps and grooves in the eyes for the veins inside the sclera, the white part of the eye. So I'm probably still will go to that level of detail just for the hell of it. But the lenses, in this case, probably not. Just because if I'm going to print those as separate pieces to insert them with tweezers and to have them be crystal clear, it's pretty hard at that scale. Because if it's larger, I mean, I could print it at 0.25 microns. I could try. I mean, I could always just create it as a insert piece that would literally just be booleaned, insert them properly and then boolean out, use the face to like cut away all the excess so that it's exactly like lock and key fit to just like semi-contact lenses, kind of just insert them right into the pupils. Could try that, but I just don't know if they would read. If I mean, if you're really close to it, you would see them. I guess if you take off the sunglasses, you would see them, but I just don't know if that would be clear enough that you would read through them to see the iris. Yeah, it couldn't hurt to try because it'd be so small. We're talking about such tiny little lenses. Yeah, I could see if the Form 3 would be able to do it, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, who knows? It can do really incredible fine detail work, but it's usually fine detail that's attached to a larger surface. These things would be, their own independent little pieces. So that would be impressive if it worked. The other side of it could be that sort of, I don't know, it would be how to insert them. Could do the whole eyeball like I did for the Indominus Indoraptor that I did for guys at ILM. If you go to my site, you can see some renders of it. I created an eyeball. It was bigger though. It was a much bigger scale. I mean, the head was like about 13 feet long. I mean, 13 feet, 13 inches long. It was a pretty decent sized bust. But what I did is I created the eyeball as the lens and then created a negative space behind it for the eye where the iris would be in physical space in real life, and then had the painters paint the inside and the back of the eyeball with the appropriate iris colors and then black for the pupil, and it created an indentation deep for the pupil as well, so there would actually be physical volume to everything as it would be in the real world. But you had to think in a different way, right? You had to re-engineer that from the backwards mentality. So it's not like a lot of people might create it just a ball like an eyeball and then just paint the eyeball on top of it, but that's not how eyes work. There's a clear glass, or tissue, clear lens of tissue, which is incredible when you really think about it. Like optically clear tissue. That's what's crazy when you really stop and think about that. The eyeball is optically clear. It's bananas, but then also mixed with other tissues that are opaque. It's just crazy. It's amazing. But a clear lens and then paint the flesh, the iris and whatnot on the inside could do that again, but that's such an incredibly fine detailed work for this that'll be so small. Again, I still don't know that even if it's extending, basically all you're doing is increasing from it being a small little surface piece to like a slightly longer piece that inserts into the head for the eyeball. I don't know that that would translate for this. Again, I don't know. We could try. I could always try. Just create two heads, and just create insert eyeballs for that too. I don't know. We'll see. Because the head's not going to be that big, and the material, everything's not going to be that much either. So again, I'll probably create the head hollow as well. So it'd be minimal amount of material. So I could always just print a couple and experiment. That's the fun and the joy of 3D printing, is you can do this kind of stuff for relatively low cost and experiment and lose some, have some throwaways. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But good question. Thank you. Anyway, all right, guys. Love these streams. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Richard. What else do we got here? Sorry, what else? Nowhere near experienced enough, but it's that likeness correct. Oh, is that likeness correct or just weird? Yeah, it's all good, man. I mean, it's pretty correct, I would say. The hair is was probably obviously not final yet. The likeness, it's a strange expression also because it's not, you know what I mean? I'm replicating that expression, so it's not his normal expression. It's not a normal calm look. But I did pull it off of a scan that was taken from Cyberpunk, so they scanned his face. You know what I mean? So the volume is pretty accurate. Well, that's a duplicate of this. Let me get to what is the difference between these two, by the way? I think things are a bit reduced because of the brushing that I did. So it actually wouldn't hurt to bring this back a bit. Actually, let's just see what happens here if so I just auto-saved. So let's go back to the beginning. Let this process for a second. So I forgot what the base for projection. So what did I do differently? Now I'm trying to remember. I have to go back and rewatch my own stream. Um, oh, okay, so all right. So yeah, this one is the more correct one. Yeah, it's the more accurate one. I think I just made adjustments, and just in case I needed to go back for some reason, I think that's where I made some changes. Duplicated it just in case. It's like life insurance. Just in case something goes wrong, have a nice little backup right here. But I mean, I have multiple saves from before, so I could always use one of those too. Yeah, because it's the exact same geo. It's just slightly different positioning. Yeah, but this one is like, that's the more finalized one where there's a bit more of the expression pulled back, like the lips and all those details. But so the scan, oops, what's going on, buddy? I think my dog just woke up. So this is the scan of his face. Very neutral expression, of course. So this is a scan that's been triangulated for a game. So you can see here it's all triangles, triangles, triangles everywhere. This is the actual low-res version. So this is what actually is in the game when you're playing Cyberpunk. This is the model that's moving its face. But the volume is there, so then I subdivided it up to smooth it out. Still kind of bumpy everywhere. And then you got to account for everything's moving, right, shifting because of the expression. So then you got that. So if we put them over top of each other, and we turn on transparency here, so we're looking at the neutral posed one, mouth closed. And then we come here to this one. I mean, the other one gets absorbed in it, I guess. Oh, wait, it's off. Here, there we go. So yeah, so there's definitely differences, but it's all just from movement, right? Movement of the face. Yeah, so I mean, it's as close as we're gonna get, I think, at this point. I don't know. I mean, I might push things a little bit further here and there. Which one's which here? Okay, so that's the other one. So like maybe like I think certain things have sunken in a little bit, but the subtleties, I'm not sure if that's throwing off how things look. You know, I also think though that there would be some shrinkage of certain things in our expansion because this scan was taken of him recently, and our nose and ears in particular continue growing as we age. So if this was him taken at like whatever he is, like 45, 49, not 45, he's like 50 now, I think, or 49, whatever, he's around there. But The Matrix was filmed like 20 some years ago, right? 21 years ago. So, or actually more than that, probably like 22 years ago it was filmed, and then it was released on 1999. So whatever, like 23, 24 years ago. So basically we're looking at almost 25 years ago compared to today, or a few years ago when they scanned him for the game. So faces, you know, gravity, weight, age, all that takes a toll on the face minutely within 25 years. So there'll be changes. So it's like, yeah, you know, um, Yeah, I definitely still look at it and say, like, at times I think it looks right. Other times I'm like, it looks a little off, something a little off. But I think it always will feel that way to some degree, just because we're none of us are accustomed to seeing his expression freeze framed in this moment, right? And we've only seen it with him with wearing glasses, straight on, right, from this shot, um, and at more blurry, distant shots of when he's making this expression. And he looks very different when he's making an angry, like the moment, the shot that he's. I'll show you guys this one image and then I'll go. Of the shot of him when he's actually for what this piece is going to be of, the shot at the end of the lobby scene when he's up in midair and just nailing this guy in the head. Such a badass shot. But it's his expression, man. It's like I've said before, people make funny expressions when they're in the middle of a complex motion. And I'm speaking from personal experience too, and also from watching other musicians in particular, people playing the violin, the guitar, piano. If you watch their face and they're really going for something, it's not just emotion, but it's involuntary contractions of the muscles and things that just come out in the face that don't look like them. I mean, it's not a normal human expression or not their normal expression at all, but it's something that just naturally happens to people when we do things that are challenging or just brain focus is going anywhere else but controlling your facial expressions. So here he's doing something that's pretty challenging, and he's also supposed to be angry and engaged, of course, and focused. So if I were to do this exact expression, I wouldn't exactly call this the most flattering look on his face, right? Like that is a very hard frown, a very hard scowl of just, very everything just down and jaws opening but lips are tight closed, and you just have a lot of that like nasolabial fold, and it's a very like sour like, expression, right? The whole like you're eating something very sour. So it's not exactly the most like iconic cool expression, but also if you were to see a sculpture of this, I think you'd be like, yeah, it's Keanu, but it's a weird look on his face. um so there's that shot, and then there's the one that was like a still of that moment, and then this is the actual from the film. This is probably not the highest resolution at all, so it may not be great, but you can still see it's a very similar expression, and it's it's kind of like ugly crying when you're just like, and it's like everything's contorting in a way that's kind of funny and unappealing or unattractive. Um, Same kind of thing here, except his mouth is slightly open, jaw is opening, cheeks and the whole area there is very tight, and almost like his mouth is open, but it's almost like making an O face slightly. So, but it's also kind of like an arg. So it's like this struggle, this expression of like anger and struggle, and but it comes off as kind of funny, right? It's not exactly like a focused, controlled, cool expression. It's more like just a struggle in the moment to achieve something. So involuntary facial expressions. And so this is a bit more of a controlled, focused, angry kind of look. But again, I feel like none of us are really that used to seeing him with this kind of freezed expression. And looking like this is obviously looks wrong, kind of looks just weird, because again, we're not used to seeing him like this. Although that pose of what he's jumping up there is the pose I'm going for. So again, things might change here slightly. Just I'll take some artistic license to adjust the expression to make it look a little bit cooler, a little bit more appealing, even than what's here right now. Because the angle that I mean, this again, it's probably going to be about like 2.5 feet tall or 2 feet tall when it's printed. Um, so most people will view his expression from somewhere like this angle, I guess, when you're looking at the piece from similar to the shot that we were just looking at. But of course, he'll have glasses on. Which ones are the higher ones? Okay, those lower ones. So something like that, and maybe he'll be looking downward a little bit more like the guy. But and then I'll have to add some slight bulging here as he'll be like doing this. He'll be downward slightly, so I have to add a little bit of a slight wrinkling of the neck. It's barely a double chin. Um, yeah, so we'll see. I will see how it turns out. I'm not going to be like it's exactly him, but it's I think as close as I can make it to the scan, which is already a little bit loose, because it's not like super high res scan of his face. But yeah, doing the best I can. I'm not going to be like it's Chris Costa level, because again, it's an expression though. It's not a very neutral. It's one that we only get from this angle. So anyway, yeah. um. Yeah, I don't mind if you're blunt or asking questions. It's all good. Love these streams, Richard. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Oh, damn, was it correct? I thought it might get chewed out. No, I mean, it's like, like I said, it's just, who knows? It's not his neutral expression, like I said. So, yeah. It's a little off, I guess you could say, or it's an expression like we're just not used to seeing, How much do they grow, though? Oh, the ears and nose. I don't know the exact millimeters. I just know that you look at someone who's elderly, and then you look at a younger picture of them, and there's a big difference in their nose and their ears. It's just all of us. It's just how the human body works. I've heard some people say, like, if you have plastic surgery or reconstructive surgery on your nose and your ears, like if they get chopped off or accidentally or whatever and reattached, that can break their growth cycle. But I don't think it fully stops them. I think they can still start growing again, and I think most people still do. I think if you have plastic surgery much later in life, that also will contribute to, like, look at Michael Jackson. I think there's a lot more than just that was a lot of surgeries though, and I think there's a lot of removal of tissue and damage to tissue there on his nose. Um, so there are certain levels of damage that can be done to the body, either outside of controlled environment or through surgery, that can inhibit growth. That can also probably have something to do with blood flow and good blood flow to a tissue, which is, you never want to disrupt that really too much. So there's a lot of factors that come into it. But basically, healthy bodies, nose and ears always keep growing slightly. I'm sure you can probably find these stats. Once you type that into Google, I'm sure you can probably find out, like, how many millimeters per year do your nose and ears grow. I don't know, it's probably a fraction of a millimeter or something, but cumulatively, over like 50, 60, 80 years, it adds up. Unfortunately, because I think none of us really want those body parts to keep growing necessarily after a certain point. Proportions. It's all about proportion, right? The face is all about nice proportions. So anyway, last question for you is, everyone, we breathe oxygen and release carbon dioxide. How does CPR work? What? And release carbon dioxide has, well, because you don't just release only carbon dioxide. It's not a pure one-to-one exchange. That's how it works. You inhale oxygen and you absorb oxygen as well as a few other gases, of course, but you breathe out. Air is not just oxygen or just carbon dioxide. It's carbon dioxide, it's oxygen, it's argon, it's helium, it's nitrogen. There's like a whole bunch of other gases in air. And so you're inhaling and exhaling all of those gases. You exhale carbon dioxide, yes, but you're also exhaling oxygen and you're also exhaling all those other gases. So you're still helping oxygenate someone else's body, their blood, when you exhale into them through CPR. Yeah. Random question on CPR. Uh, good night after it's answered. There you go. I mean, again, Google it, man. I mean, I'm sure they'll get a better answer than what I gave you, a more detailed answer. Older people's noses, 65 to 85 years old, are typically 15% larger than that of younger people's, 18 to 30. So there you go. Interesting, right? It's just the more you know. All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with me for the last hour or so, almost 2 hours. We almost hit 4 o'clock. Anyway, I gotta go. I've got a lot of other stuff to do today, and I'm gonna blast through it. So, yeah, take care, be well, get outside, get some sun, get some fresh air, go play without a mask on, breathe some fresh air. Um, People don't catch COVID outside. Look it up. It doesn't happen unless you're like in a stadium. Maybe you could, but outdoors, just don't wear a mask, dude. Get out there and just, my opinion, get out there and just breathe some fresh air. Go run. Go enjoy the sunlight if you have any. Yeah. Anyway, take care, guys. Be well. Have fun. I'll see you guys in like 2 weeks. And follow me on Instagram, by the way. If you haven't followed me on Instagram before, this is me. Give me a follow. If you like anything I share, feel free to share it. That's me on Instagram. You can find me on social media pretty much everywhere else. Same thing for YouTube. It's YouTube/user, whatever that. Twitter. I don't really use Facebook anymore. I hate Twitter too, honestly. So it's mostly Instagram is where I post stuff. Look that up for that and ArtStation. Yeah. So anyway, all right, guys. Again, take care. I'll talk to you guys later.